I wanted to share with you our work at in NHS England, which I feel very privileged to have been able to get through the door of, and that's thanks to the voices of the young people themselves, which managed to achieve something I'd been trying to do for 20 years and failed, to a friendly lord in the House of Lords who was willing to write the letter to NHS England, to Sir Bruce Keogh, who's the outgoing medical director of NHS England, who advised us how to write the letter and kept persuading us to do it, and to Jane and our patron, Dominic Grieve, who actually came with us and helped lift the barriers that have been facing us for a very long time. So we had actually a meeting on the 13th of January 2025 with the NHS Cancer Children's and Young People Commissioning CRG, and we talked about improving access to specialist services for children and young people, that's up to 25, with rare pituitary tumours, so that they had access to optimal and equitable surgeons who had the right opportunity to treat them with perioperative care at the right time in the right numbers, because we know that makes a difference to outcomes. And we've talked also about using a national registry so that we can begin to get some of the data that Ian was showing is actually missing because these conditions are so rare. And we also talked about neurorehabilitation for every single child, which would actually ultimately reduce the long-term morbidity across the life course. I've spent a large portion of my career with about 150 other passionate multidisciplinary colleagues across the UK, of which Ian was one, trying to agree these guidelines that we needed to produce in order to convince our oncology colleagues that the endocrine community had a reason to actually request these specialist services. And I'm very pleased to report that we've not only got these endorsed under a nice equivalent banner, they reach the highest standard of agreed to guidance, but they're world first guidelines and published in high profile peer reviews in Nature. So pituitary adenomas covers 7 or 8 childhood conditions with hormone secreting or not glands of the pituitary. We've done craniopharyngioma that Ian touched on earlier, and we've also done idiopathic pituitary stalk, which these are children who present with polyuria and polydipsia. That means you're weeing and peeing, like Shane described, and may not have any tumour evidence then, but it may grow over the next 10 to 20 years and either become a germinoma or histiocytosis. And we have, these are the tumours that I talked about. We haven't done the optic low-grade gliomas because they fall under general low-grade gliomas at the moment under cancer treatment. We don't tend to get involved with the malignant germ cell tumours, but I think there's a very important message that pituitary specialists do need to be there for these as well, to try and smooth perioperative care and subsequent care for these tumours. And I was very pleased to report that NHS England did take this seriously. We pointed out to Matt Day, who's the commissioner, and Nicola McCulloch, who's the deputy, as well as Julia Chisholm, who's the oncologist heading up the CRG, that some of these issues had not been addressed before because the CRG does not have endocrinologist representative on them and does not have neurorehabilitation specialists. These associates, including neurosurgery, is actually under neuroscience, and endocrinology is under medicine, and cancer, children's cancer, is under cancer. So it was at one of Manchester's roadshow last year that we had the children's czar, and he pointed out that actually that we're all on the same floor of NHS England. So that got us going, and we were very pleased to meet with them. And we said, now we've done these guidelines, which carry their own authority for children's cancer guidelines, please can you help us implement them? And they promised to map the current care for rare pituitary tumours and assess the degree of endocrine support that each child was receiving in the principal cancer treatment centres, check how this aligned across relevant services and service specifications for children with cancer, and consider whether any changes were needed. And they also promised to review what data was held about these tumours in the new National Disease Registration System, which now carries 20 years of data and is mature enough. That's where these figures come from, to show you that actually survival rate hasn't changed, and we know nothing about the quality of that survival. So they wanted to understand the latest data and promised us a meeting in May, and that took place on the 22nd of May. And their initial, what they fed back was that the desktop scoping review did indeed show that an endocrinologist was missing from the specification of the guidelines, and to assess how we're going to implement the the CCLG hosted guidance. I think every centre was circulated a questionnaire, and I'd be interested to know, Tim, if you got one, as it went to the cancer centres completing at the end of June, and I'll show you what kind of data was asked for in that question. But that questionnaire was developed with us, in partnership with us, which I also thought was an amazing agreement. I can't share all the data because we're expecting a follow-up, and I don't want to break confidence. But what the question is, how many and which pituitary tumours are we talking about? And they agreed to look at pituitary adenomas and carcinomas, craniopharyngiomas, and intracranial germ cell tumours, of which they estimated about 45% were intracellular. And this assessment shows histology and site. And you can see that the numbers for three tumours are really quite small. And they change depending as you grow. So the confluence of which types of tumour affect which types of children change from the under 14s to the over 14s. In total, we're talking for all three of these diseases, we're talking about 25 to 30 every year only in childhood, and about 40 to 50 every year in adolescence. And that's across the whole of the UK. So it is actually very rare, and it meets criteria for trying to say that we need to get the best care the first time round with the right specialty expertise. And other tumours, such as retinoblastoma, which is a tumour of the eye, are centralised to centres, and they've been able to really grow their ability to deliver the best care and analyse it alongside data in a way that has not happened for this very rare tumour. So we're looking forward to seeing what the next steps are. We also showed them our own data from the Pituitary Forum, Interest Forum that Ian alluded to earlier, that I've been driving since 2011 at Great Ormond Street, but it has no formal authority, and it competed alongside the National Epilepsy Service, surgical service that Great Ormond Street offer, and the difference between what was commissioned and what was not commissioned was very evident. But you can see that over the last decade, this is data that's been updated by my colleague, Dr. Gann, and the team, shows that two-thirds of cases that were discussed at this forum have actually changed the management plan of these children's tumours, and they come there's no forced reason to attend this. It's only voluntary surgeons and physicians, usually endocrinologists, who are faced with diagnostic dilemmas, and occasionally oncologists who may be faced with difficult craniopharyngioma. So about a fifth of craniopharyngioma, about 2/5 are actually pituitary adenomas, which don't have a home, and of which half are actually prolactin-secreting tumours of the pituitary. The other half are more complex, including cortisol-secreting disease, Cushing's disease, which is a very difficult endocrine condition, and which no one ever mentions, but it's actually life-threatening too. And then a small amount that were germanomas because they get treated straight away in oncology, but a significant fifth that were this dilemma of a thickened pituitary stalk and or water diabetes, as Tabitha called it earlier. But I don't feel that enough endocrinologists in pediatrics have the expertise to manage this. There are more common problems in adulthood, which is why adult services are more set up to deal with them, and why we had to collaborate with adult colleagues to develop these guidelines. And I think we need to try and get this forum formally established, that at least we have the expertise and every child gets discussed as a matter of course. If we had the right professionals funded to deliver this decision-making at a virtual, national or two-centre level in the same way we deliver proton beam. The questionnaire that went round is, does your ODN have specific network referral for those under 16? And I'm also very concerned about this sort of gap. Are you a child or are you an adult? 16 to 18. So anyone over 18 would be able to access adult pituitary services. Anyone between 16 and 18 might, but there are some centres like our own that will not take children. For instance, Queen Square in London will not take children under 18. And as Ian pointed out, most of these surgeons are in the adult sphere. And I think there's a lot of research that we could do as well. Are children under 19 discussed in a specialist hypothalamic pituitary MDT? Is it age appropriate? If it's in a neuro-oncology MDT, does it have a skull base or a pituitary surgeon there directly? And is it an age-appropriate other type of oncology MDT, so not a brain tumor MDT, but with skull base and or pituitary surgeons or something else? And if there is age-appropriate endocrinology support, how is it accessed? And then further questions about where the surgery is given, and is it in an age-appropriate setting? How many access the different types of transphemoidal or skull base or craniotomy surgery? Does everyone have access from the beginning, from the first diagnosis to these surgical options? And is there on-site endocrine support that knows what it's doing, experienced in pituitary management? Some of these children have swinging salt and water balance, life-threatening adrenal crisis. Things can change overnight. And I've spent many a night running 24/7 to try and support these children without a mandate and without being prepared. And that's what's driven some of this passion of mine, because I really do feel it's quite worrying if you're faced with situations that you're not familiar with and there is no junior or nurse support to help you see the child through. And there is also subsequent commissioning questions about what is there for the long-term follow-up. And these questions have gone round, and they have also been around for every child. And we want to make sure that these children get the same neurorehab, because there has been an idea that because their brain injury is different and they don't get paralyses and stroke-type symptoms or epilepsy, they tend to get more hormonal and visual deficits and behavior deficits and mental health deficits that we've been hearing about. They're entitled to, and some of them may not even get cancer treatment. They just get watch and wait. So we wanted to make sure that all of the subsequent follow-up that these other children had were also given to these pituitary tumours, because they also get developmental issues. And I would remind everyone, I've learned a lot by working alongside my neuroscience colleagues and my oncology colleagues. And I think if we could work together more and make sure that we addressed all these aspects of care for every child from the beginning, we would all be able to prevent some of the longer term problems. And then we also have to address the existing problems in the survivors.